Okay, great. I just basically I'm just shooting this recording session to I guess have some review footage for myself. I'm gonna try and do a testing exercise that our boss was kind enough to set up for us to do to start practicing towards passing the Laravel certification. And I'm throwing in an extra curveball for myself, and that is that I will do the essentially, I'll deliver the requirements, but in a test-driven development way, at least from what I've kind of like observed and watched online. So yeah, this is a very amateurish approach at it, but this is just me kind of exercising it within kind of the scope of this task. All right, so let's have a look at the task itself. All right, so we need to build a function called getLetters. What the getLetters function is meant to do is it'll accept an array of numbers where all numbers are between 1 and 26, so that'll be corresponding to the alphabet. There's a specific request to implement a collection method called toAlpha. Okay, well, that's interesting. I haven't seen that before, so we'll go and read up on that. And as an example, okay, 8, 5, A, B, C, D, E. Yes, okay, so again, the numbers correspond to the letter in the alphabet, and that's the sample input and expected output. So let's get to it. Okay, so I've got some scaffolding set up already that I'm not really going to dive into right now, but essentially I've got a service, I've got a helper method that returns an instance of the service, and from that I'm kind of implementing the methods there. So once I've got that little object instantiated, boom, I've got access to all of these methods. So test-driven development, first step, write a failing test and then write a minimum amount of code to make that test pass, refactor, and then write a failing test. So let's get into it. I am using containerization for this, so I will be launching my Docker container sale app, CLI, switching to the user. So let's just hit clear. Let's see if our test suite still passes. PHP artisan test. Yes, so there's no failing test at the moment. What I am looking for is just the initial write. So what I also tend to do is, because I don't need the whole test suite to run, I am able to only execute the relevant test that, or the relevant feature test that I am going to be doing my test-driven development from. You'll see there are some feature tests that I previously wrote. And so let's do this one. So PHP artisan test dash dash filter equals collection service test. And there we go. We've only got our one test running. And so we're obviously going to be running that command over and over as we do the TDD. Okay, perfect. So going back to it, we need to create a function called getLetters. So naturally there will be a test, something to the effect of public function test get letters expected output. So that is our test. We're testing whether the get letters function returns the expected output. Okay, so there we go. So going back to this, firstly, we can see we're expecting an array. So let us then say this assert true. We're going to be doing type, is it, I think it's get type, PHP get type, yeah. We're doing get type, and that's going to be needing to assert that it is equal to array. All right, so we've got our helper method. There we go. And from that, we'll try and call the get letters function. Perfect. Let me just see if I spelled that correct. Get letters. Yes, it's plural, so it needs an S. Okay, perfect. So there we've got our first test that should fail. And fantastic. So call to undefined method. Yes, and that's what we were expecting. We haven't actually declared the method yet in the service. So Let us hit up that service. Let's make use of, can I actually just do this? And that goes there. And then here's our service. Yeah, thank goodness for modern IDEs. Okay, so we are now only going to write the minimum necessary code to get this to pass. So function get letters, and then it's going to return an array, and so that should set us up nicely and perfect. Our test passes. All right, so what are our requirements? So given an array of numbers where all numbers are between 1 and 26, okay, interesting. So we probably need to have some form of validation to check that the array of numbers that have been given are only between 1 and 26, so not less than 1, not more than 26, and they'll all need to be integers. So there's some testing we need to do over there. Got some type hinting over there. So thinking, so we want to test for a kind of an exception to be thrown if we don't give a valid array of numbers. So I think for now I'm just going to test that first parameter, and that is that there is an exception thrown if you give me a number less than 1 or more than 26. Okay, so back to the editor, back to the feature test set. Cool. All right, so with exceptions, they tend to need to be contained within their own function bodies. At least that's, I probably need to dig a bit deeper on that. I don't know that as well as yet. But let's do PHP unit assertion exception thrown. So we've got this one, PHP assertion, assert an exception is thrown. I just want to have a look at this tutorial. I did read the Stack Overflow article a while back. Just want to see if somebody has. So there's the function, there's the test. This expect exception cannot divide by 0. You can do various things. They're testing the divide. This is the same. 2 divide 4, 2. Yeah, that makes sense. This exception. Okay, this is a bit different than the Stack Overflow code. So I'm actually going to try this method because the one that I had, you'd actually need to, let me actually show you rather than just talking through it. The one that they had, you essentially need a singular function that just tests for the exception if you do it this way. So what I have been wanting to do is the exceptions have been set up. Now run the code. This should throw the exception. The following code will not execute the method as exited. Okay, so in other words, exception testing, you can do one exception test per unit or per test, because like this comment says, the code has exited. I was just curious to see if there was a way to do multiple exception testing in a singular test method, but it looks like that isn't the case, and that does correspond with what I read here in the Stack Overflow article. Just having a look at this. It's quite, when was this? 2020. All right, so 2 years ago. Seeing that, looking at this. Yeah, I'm seeing, I might dig into it a bit later. I'm not going to dig into it too much now, but that was something I encountered earlier when I was testing exceptions, and that is that once you trigger the exception, no code or no assertions further in the test will be triggered, because effectively, like this says, the code has been exited or the method has been exited once the exception is thrown. So what I'm actually going to do is I'll write specific feature tests to test the exceptions rather than rather than making that part of the kind of the main logic test of it. So let us hit up the IDE. So let us do a new test, public function test get letters max min array number exception. I could probably get a better name for that, but that is pretty explicit. All right, so fantastic. So what we've got is we will need to be testing an exception, and so thank goodness for Google. We got that. So essentially, we've got an if, which then either throws an exception. All right, so we'd want to do the exception we'd be expecting is, yeah, I'd say it can just be an exception as well, the same as they've done here. So I'll do this assert what's it? Oh Lord, my spelling, exception. Expect exception. Expect exception. Exception. So that's what we're waiting for. I see there's a couple of others I'd actually like to try. So let's see what they. You can also have a code. I see there's giving the, or they are giving the code. There's a message, and then they're also doing a regular expression check. Divide by 0. Cool. I think the only thing that I'd really be worried about, I don't know so much about exception codes, but I think the only thing I'd be curious about is that my expected message is there and that it's the correct type of exception is thrown. Okay, all right, so this expect exception message input array may only contain values greater than or equal to 1 or smaller than and equal to 26. Not and, or, let's just get that right, gotcha. Okay, so that, and then of course what we will be doing over here is we will be doing, using our help method, we'll be calling the getLetters function, to which we'll be passing in an array 0, 1, 2, 3, which should trigger the error, and that should trigger it. It's interesting because I realize now that you can't trigger it twice, because again, once the exception throws, it actually exits the method. That's quite an interesting little caveat, a gotcha right there. So if I wanted to test that it throws both above and below, then I'd actually need to write two methods. Alrighty, a little bit of code duplication, so there might be room there to dry up the code. But essentially this one will be our min array number exception, and then this will be our max array number exception. So instead of, we'll have 27, and so that should also throw an error. How could we dry this up? We could dry this up by wrapping these, but okay, we're not going to worry about that right now. But essentially I have two tests that will fail. So the first one will fail and we'll need to write the minimum code to get it to pass. So let us get into that. So clear, running it, having a look at this, failed asserting that exception of type exception was thrown, failed asserting that exception of type exception was thrown. Oh, that's fantastic. I think it actually ran my whole suite, which I'm really glad about because I was curious about that because I found that there's essentially this flag. Is it stop on failure? Beautiful. Okay, wow. So I must have coding the other day. So by default, PHP unit actually doesn't stop when a test fails. It'll run your entire test suite and it'll give you like we had in this first output, all the tests ran and it'll told me which failed. For some reason, mine was just defaulting to this behavior, which is it stops on the first one it failed. So I did a bunch of stuff, got a bunch of advice, but just nothing was working. And goes to the machine, suddenly it's working tonight. So fantastic! It's actually really cool to show that. So I am going to stop on failure, right? Because we wanna do this test by test. So the first test is the minimum array number exception isn't triggering the way it's meant to. So now let's go write the minimum code to make that pass. All right, so again, we're going to hit up the collection service and we are going to do the necessary check. So first thing, while we're here, we need to accept a parameter because that will be part of the minimum code we need. We already know, look, type inting save live, so always type int. And so we will do get letters. Let's call this let's do it letter array. No, that's probably going to be better for the output. Uh, uh, number array. Yeah, number array for now, that's fine, with the output being letter array. So initially you're going to give me a number array, and also we already know that we need to type in the output, because if we go and have a look at the requirements, you'll see that again, I think we were being spoiled here because it's meant to be a standard practice. Type inting saves life. All right, so we got that in, we got that out. All right, so we now need to do a if, and this should be interesting. Because part of this exercise, I've got to use collections. So now I'm thinking, either way, standard practice I found previously is casting the array that's given as a collection. So again, Laravel, so we'll do number, actually that should be plural, numbers collection equals collect. That's the Laravel helper function, which is awesome. Numbers array, gotcha, casted and passed. Gotcha. That'll give me what I want over there. And then I believe we should be able to do an if function. So now I'm wondering if there's a collection function where I can ask it to return or to check if there are any values in the collection that are less than 1. To say like true or false. That's quite an interesting one. So let's do numbers collection. We've got quite a few options over here. So we can filter. Look, I guess we can filter and tell it to filter for values that are less than 1, and then maybe do a count and go if the count is greater than 0 or not greater than 0, then we could technically throw the exception. No, if it is greater than 0, throw the exception. Looking at this, sure, this will be quite interesting. So here's a contains method, which returns a Boolean value, which might be quite interesting. Actually, let's not guess this. Let's try Google 101. Laravel collection method to check for value exists. Kind of like that one. Check if object already exists in collection. Might be relevant. Let's have a look and see what they do. Contains name service. There's got to be a clever way to do this. Check if value exists. Laravel collection. Check if any values return true for function. Laravel check if collection has value. Code example. Now I think we've done this. So they're collecting there. So it's saying contains, and I don't think I can use a comparison operator to tell it does it contain. Then again, this will be checking the values. I'm sorry, I'm deviating a bit here, but I'm just curious to see if, actually really curious to see if this works, because in my mind, this would probably be iterating over everything and saying, look, do you compare to this? But that'll probably be a double equal sign, so making it a less than probably won't work. It's too much of a long shot. Laravel, how to check if at least one column value is true or false. Okay, I'm probably not formulating my question well enough, but we do have a solution, even though it might not be the best solution right now. So let us do uh, filter. Cool. We'll be filtering the collection, and we will be doing a callback. So I'm just shouldn't get confused with my JavaScript. I think a closure is literally like this. And then we're just going to do value, so that it actually gives me the value of the collection, and we're going to return it if the value is less than I think we said 1, yeah. So if the value is less than 1, okay, so I'm not seeing the function. So that be a bit more acceptable? Oh wow, okay, sorry, I actually only recently really, so I know anonymous functions from Python and from JavaScript. I probably got this wrong, but I've always experienced lambdas in Python as anonymous functions, and anonymous functions are anonymous functions in JavaScript. So PHP closures, just quickly show me an example of this. How do they do it? They do, oh damn, it's not the same thing. PHP anonymous function. I just remember I saw the word closure somewhere, somebody, but I don't think I probably mixed up terminology over there. So let's see. So you just call function, yes, and okay, so for all intents and purposes, I don't think I had an issue over there. Do I have a little bit too many? Oh, fantastic. Well, that's what you get for coding at this time on a Saturday evening. So function, I would be quite interested to see. I think this is going to get a bit messy, but in any case, so that'll return a collection which is filtered, which means we can do a count. And if the count is greater than 0, then this is true. At which point we want to throw an exception, and I'm definitely going to have to clean this up. That's just, I'm getting. So then we will do, is it throw new backslash exception. I think that's how I read it. Again, thank goodness for Google. This will sooner or later become off the cuff knowledge. Throw new exception. Cool. And we're going to type it out because we are not copy paste people. Throw new exception. And then what is the minimum amount that we need to pass? It's got to be an exception, which I believe we've got over here. Yeah, so that should cover it. And then the message that it needs to send out into the universe is this puppy. Okay, so let's just slice that off. Go to the end, C2 quotes, put a colon down. This should be interesting. I am expecting this to pass. Let's see how it fares. Okay, too few arguments to function. Oh, right, 100%, because obviously we now need to actually pass it an argument. Interesting. Let's read that error again. So we've got get letters. this is failing on my service. So I actually do need to give it a code. Gee whiz. Okay. I'm just going to start with 100 because I see they did it in their code. But what I will do before I leave this bit is just go and see. Uh, okay, get letters. Oh, okay, hang on. Public function, get letters, array, numbers array. Too few arguments to function abstract get letters, 0 passed. Right, because we've got, what do we have here? Get letters. That's the actual function. Right, okay, fantastic. So it was actually this one that was failing. Again, awesomeness to code at this time on a Saturday. But that should clear us up. Let's see what happens. And our exception tester actually passed, which is friggin' awesome. Which puts us on to the next failing test, right? So we've written the minimum code to make it pass, and we got our next failing test. And we know why this test is failing because we're currently only checking for 27. So now minimum code and modify the code to make the next test pass. So here we are only filtering for values that are less than 1. And now what we need to do is and value greater than 26. Why is it highlighting that in yellow? Condition is always false. Oh, amazing IDEs, right? So the value has to be less than 1 or, hang on, I've been using all liberally, and the standard we use is two pipe icons, I believe they're called, to denote or. But again, thanks so much to the IDE, and it's those little things that really just help, especially when you're busy with many different kind of comparison operators. All right, so let's see. We should have a clear bill of health, and we do. Wow, that's really cool. Okay, fantastic. So we did red, we did green. I just want to refactor a bit before writing the next failing test because this doesn't look too fantastic. Let us see. How did I write this? So we've got the if statement. I would rather want to abstract this bit, have it its own, have it its own min, max, max check collection. Let's just call it min max check. I think it should be clear enough from reading the code that it's a collection. Okay, so we've got that one. It's not showing me any love, and why should it? Because I should wrap that in a colon and give it a little operator over there. Okay, so we're going to be doing min max check, and we're going to be calling the count off of that, which means we might just as well do the count over here, because again, that is what one of the beautiful things of collections is method chaining. And so that already looks a bit better to me. Fantastic. So I'm hitting this code for the first time. Is it easy to see what I'm reading? Let's just do a comment that I think would enhance the readability. Not that the code's not clear enough, but I just want you to know, look, this is just the bit that handles exceptions. So you can gloss over this if you're just interested in the implementation. So let's do min max check. Validation of input numbers. Validation of input numbers. Validation that input numbers will map to alphabet characters. Map to, let's just do map to characters in the alphabet. There we go. So that's just because we can only accept values 1 to 26. Now also we know that we don't want okay, now hang on. So we've refactored a little bit. Um, geez, I need to think about doing something. I'm going to remove this code because our code wasn't actually failing. At some stage, I definitely need to go brush up a bit on exception codes in PHP, how to throw and utilize them more effectively. I do not really like this long string. It's exceeding the width of the terminal, so I can leave it as is potentially, but just not ideal. I could abstract it just a bit higher, which means we can eventually, if it becomes a common message, we can actually abstract it much higher than that. Okay, so so I had made the decision to abstract the string, keep the code the preferred width. So exception message. Let's keep that MSG, camel case. Okay, just inside it. But again, I think that will allow us, if we want to refactor it further, maybe extract it to a language file or something, then we can do it a bit easier by just taking this line. But that should be good to go. So I have refactored. So now we just get to check whether any of that refactoring broke any of the tests. It did not, which means we get to write the next test that fails. Right, so we've done the validation for the input numbers. Going back to the IDE, so let's have a look at the requirements again. 1 to 26, these need to be numbers, so we also need to do a check to make sure that all the integers inside, or all the numbers that are provided inside, are all integers, which means they won't have decimal places or anything weird like that. We really only want and need numbers between and including 1 and 26. So let's do that. That's a good test. So again, we will be taking one of these puppies, and again, I'm sensing myself copy pasting code blocks, which means there's opportunity to dry this up. So the next one will be get letters max min array number exception. So this will be get letters non-integer provided exception. And also because we can already see that we've got these strings living in two places, so there's definitely room to dry up the code, but I might not get to that tonight. All right, so we know that we're expecting exceptions, so that can stay the same. The code that needs to fail is this code, 1.5, 2.8, so this would typically be code that needs to fail. The exception message should then be all values in the, let's just quickly have a look at get letters in the numbers array. All values in the numbers array need to be of type integer. And in fact, can we throw a type error? Type. I think I've seen this. I'm just not sure. Again, the PHP errors, it's definitely something we're going to be diving in a bit more to. PHP exceptions on type. Domain exception, letter exception. Oh, gee whiz, there's a whole list. So is there a type exception? No. What is all of this about? Bad function, cool. We've got all of these things. Going back here, so do we have type, exception? What do we have here? They're explaining how to use it. Throw new. Oh, you know what? There's just exceptions. PHP type exception. I could have sworn there's a type exception. Type error. Type error extends error. So I want to try and throw a type error. So this is the one that I'm expecting. Type error. All values in the number array. Alright, so if we run this now, we are going to get failing test. The only thing is the minimum code I need to write over here. Oh, okay, now you know what? Because I need to catch it. So let me give it numbers with like, so 25, 1.5, 2.83. Those are all technically numbers within the range 1 to 26, but they aren't valid integers. So we'd expect this error to trigger. So that should be a failing test that will prompt us to go write the minimum code to go fix it. Failed asserting that except of type error was thrown. Perfect. Cool, which means we got to do our next one. So we have already cast, so let us do this as well. Validation that input numbers are all integers. Should be apparent from the code too, but I'm just following convention here and just giving a little bit of a block code. And apparently there's a whole validators framework. I still need to look into that. So I have been told in the past that, you know, it's awesome to do validation here, but Laravel actually has a whole validation framework. So still kind of getting to that. Hopefully you'll see that in future. Okie dokes, which means the next thing we need to do is we need to do a int check. In check. So this will be the numbers collection we'll be taking again. Does it make sense? Do we need to do one check before the other? No, as long as they both run, it should be fine. So again, we will be filtering function. So we'll be doing, I'm just going to call it value again, and I don't mind that because it is within the context of this anonymous function. So that should be fine. Again, we're going to be doing something similar. We're going to be counting it and we're going to ask it if it's greater than 0. Then, and I see again, we've got some repeating code, so we could potentially refactor. But we are going to be returning get type of the value if it does not equals integer. I think that should sort us out because we will be throwing and so now we'll be doing exception message. So we've got exception message up here, but it should be exception value. There we go. Now we're going to be pushing it out to the side. So let us do message value range. Just put that over there, message value range, and then we're going to be doing message, and I just noticed that you could just do refactor read name. Let's make it lowercase, just, there we go, msg, value range, msg, integers. Luckily, we're going to be using this quite close by, so the message that our test is expecting is this one. So I just add a full stop over there. Cleanliness. Got you, got you, got you. Okay, so we got that. And then we're going to be doing a similar check, which I think this is maybe where the validator framework might actually help you to drive your code, because there's definitely a pattern that's being repeated here that could probably be abstracted into a method. So if int check is greater than 0, then we will be throwing an exception. Throw new, except this time type error, and it will be the MSG integers, and that should be enough, unless there's something weird with type error that I don't know about. Wow, it just passed. So obviously we got the exception when it didn't work, and our get letters expected output, I think that actually just tests that if we give it the right numbers, it won't complain. So it is actually reaching the end of the code, so that is still testing that, which is fantastic. Good. So let us have a look at some more things. Okay, so then and return a corresponding array of letters. 1 equals by calling collection numbers to alpha in your implementation method. Okay, so we've done our validation, which I quite like. I'm quite curious to see if my teammates could also pick up on that validation issue. Yeah, because I think if it's not in the doc string, you won't necessarily know. Yeah, it's interesting. To alpha. Because look, I can like one solve is you've got a key value array numbered 1 to 26, of which the keys are the numbers and the values are the letters. But I wonder what this 2 alpha is about. Let's actually Google that and read up a bit. So again, this is about the getting a bit more prepped for the Laravel certification. So Laravel collections to alpha. Okay, so yep, we're doing version 8. Version 9 is out, so one of these days to alpha. Hang on. By calling collection numbers to alpha in your implementation. Is there such a method as to alpha? Must include to alpha. Huh. To alpha. Maybe it's not an actual method, but I'm wondering to alpha. And I know that there's generally all your characters can be represented by an alphanumeric number or a number. So I wonder if it's like a trick question. To alpha. Numbers to alpha. Is such a thing. So is there like a programming, maybe even PHP, maybe there's a built-in thing, PHP converting numbers to letters. To convert numbers to letters. Oh well, yeah, somebody else has had this problem before. Nice and easy. Yeah, got you. Yeah, so there's the oh, you don't even need to do key values because you could automatically. Sorry, so I can take that one. This is base 26, so they're just doing that. There is something. Let's maybe just go back to that ask. Collect the numbers, and then to alpha. Let's actually see if the IDE maybe knows about a method like that. Well, no. You're not going to write code. This is test-driven development. So write your failing test. All right. Public. Actually, do we need to write another one? Are we going to enhance test letters expected output? So here we're testing that it's an array that's expected to be received. So the next one we want is assert true. And now we're actually going to use the test case that we have been subscribed, yeah, one of those two. Get letters, right, and we want to do 8, 5, 12, 12, 15. 8, 5, 12, 12, 15. Let's make those nice. Okay, was it like, yeah, I cut you like that. Probably don't need spaces, now that I think about it. Can't remember what the PSR standard was, but we will have a code checker. So this is it true, needs to return, noticing it's all caps. Okay, that's also something that might be relevant in a little bit. Actually, can I just do uh-huh. Hello, got you. Okay, so that is the test. That is the test that they want to have passed. But obviously, we can cheat the system a bit because let us run our test, see what happens. Stop on failure. Okay, so we are now failing this test. So let us get letters. Minimum code to make this pass. Oh my word. And it's passing again. So we cheated the system by only having one validation, which means to prove that our code has sentience, or at least that it can think for itself. We are going to make this a 1 and expect hello with an A. We should be failing again. Fantastic. Now we need to write the minimum code to make it pass, which means we can't use this hack. We actually need to have logic that can dynamically interpret the input to the output. So now we actually get to experiment a little bit with this concept of 2 alpha. Numbers collection 2 alpha does not exist. Okay, so a 2 alpha method doesn't exist, but the trick is probably to write a function 2 alpha that doesn't necessary. I wonder if I'm missing something in your implementation by calling collect numbers 2 alpha in your implementation method. Sure. There is probably something here. I might miss this. I really thought 2 alpha would be a. So let's do Laravel collection methods. It's probably wanting us to pick up on a method or a helper on Laravel's collections, which can allow you to substitute an array with another array's values. Well, available messages. So chunk, collapse, collect, combine, contain, count, compile, die and dump, which we all love. Dump duplicates. Every except filter first, flatten, forget. Get group by has implode. Maybe intersect. That sounds like something which can desk intersect all. Desk and chair. The intersect method removes any values from the original collection that are not present in the given array or collection. The resulted collection will preserve the. Oh, this is quite nice. Okay. Sofa isn't in this. Okay, okay, so that's intersect. Interesting. Intersect by keys. Similar thing. It probably is keys. Is that empty? Join. Key by. What does key by do? The key by method keys the collection by the given key. If multiple items have the same key, only the last item will appear in the new collection. Huh. Yeah, it doesn't look like it'd be that one. Replace, maybe? The replace method behaves similarly to merge. However, in addition to overriding matching items that have string keys, the replace method will also override items in the collection that have matching numeric keys. So you're giving me a collection called Taylor, Abigail, and James. You're telling me Victoria, so that'll be the first one, yes, and then the third value is 0, 1, 2, 3, so there should be no fin. Oh, override items in the collection that have matching numeric keys. So fin actually doesn't exist. One and Victoria override each other, so I'm thinking if I do a collection replace, then I might actually be able to do that, right? Because we are talking about position. And then replace recursive. Right, so that'll just... Okay, so far replace looks pretty good. Just not so comfortable that it's just using positional keys and not actually last macro map. Maps of functions. I mean, we could write a function to be mapped. Map spread, max, median, merge recursive. What does merge do? Merge will slosh those two into each other. The merge method merges the given array or collection with the original collection. If a string key in the given item matches a string key in the original value, will override the value of the original collection. Alright, so we got price 200 and price 100. So price 200 was overwritten, discount was added because it didn't exist. Product ID, nothing happened with it because it was unique. Interesting. Min mode, nth only, pad partition, pipe, pipe into, pipe and pipe into. The pipe method passes the collection to a given closure and the results are executed. Okey-dokes, pipe into method creates a new instance of the given class and passes the collection into the constructor. Interesting. Pluck, pop, prepend, pull, push, put random range, reduce, spread, reject, replace. I'm still feeling that close all tabs to the right. I think replace is going to be my boy. Search, shift, shuffle, sliding, skip, skip, slice, sol. Some sort, sort, ascending, sort, splice, split, split in some, take, well, take, tap. Ooh, what is tap? Sounds interesting. I remember reading this somewhere in the past. Tap method passes the collection to a given callback, allowing you to tap into the collection at a specific point and do something with items while not affecting the collection itself. The collection is tap method. Okay, no. Saw somebody times to array to JSON transform. Transform method iterates over collection and calls the given callback with each item in the collection. The item in the collection will be replaced by the value returned by the callback. So now I'm thinking I could use the transform method, which is quite interesting because you would think that transform and map are similar in... Unlike most collection methods, transform modifies the collection itself. If you wish to create a new collection, instead use map. And there's your big difference. Mutable, non-mutable, and mutable mutators. Geez, that's interesting. Okay. Do I actually want to mutate the original object? Because I can then just pass it back. Because you would have had to have passed it by reference to get it to. So I think within the local scope of the function, you could mutate it. Okay, that's quite transform, replace. Because you could do map to, so you could. I mean, this one you're going to basically be. All of them you're going to be doing that. Unwrap values. What does values do? The values method returns a new collection with the keys reset to constructive integers. Oh, cool. Must be an interesting use case for that. Undot, union, transform, unwrap, where actually, where, wrap and zip. What does this zip function do? Probably mashes two things together. Yes. Nice. Huh. Okay. So there isn't anything particular within Laravel. So is there like a PHP numbers 1 to 26 to alphabet and vice versa? Yeah, it does A maps to 0, yet A maps to 26, yada yada yada. Array flip. Huh, that's quite interesting. You can run this as high as you want, and your server memory will allow the PHP is buggy, and at least on my server, if you use the less than. Ooh, there's a range method. Interesting. You can do range. Wow, I've got to try that out. I remember in Python I used to be able to build, I mean, especially if we were doing like sample data generation and stuff, we had methods and things to like populate like arrays to Truffer. So we will be using 2alpha, but what I do want to do is I want to dump range. So A to Z, what do you give me if we run this? Let's see. Would you look at that? Okay, so that is going to be my alphabet. And what we need. So this is an interesting one because for us to be able to call to alpha from the base collection class, we effectively need to extend the class. Holy yo, that's quite an interesting one. So let's see what we got. So collections, there are lazy higher order messages. Collections also provide support for higher order, which are shortcuts to perform common actions on collections. The collection method that provides higher order, yada yada yada. Each higher order message can be accessed by dynamic properties on a collection instance. For instance, yes, I think he wants me to use. I think I saw this. It was like a macro. Macro. Here we go. The static macro method allows you to add methods to the collection class at runtime. Refer to the documentation on extending collections. Shoo, this is interesting. Extending collections. So there's the collection, the macro. Yeah, geez, I didn't even know. Ah, that's fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad we're getting to use this. Because I read this and I thought, wow, this looks really cool but complicated. And I'm so glad we're delving into it. Collections are macroable, which allows you to add additional methods to the collection class at runtime. Da 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 da. Macro method accepts closure. See, they're using the word closure. But if you do PHP closure, then I feel like I'm getting something else. Class used to represent anonymous functions. Huh. Okay. Okay. So it's fine. Okay. So this is actually the class and not so much the implementation of it. Ha. Really interesting. Okie dokes. So we've got this. So we're going to do macro, we're going to do function, we're going to do this. And we're going to make it nice and clean. So collection, colon, colon. Huh. So do we... So we're going to do this before we actually instantiate it from like looking at the code example. Clever. Okay. So we're going to do collection macro function value. Hang on, how did they write this? The first one's the string, right? So we're going to do, I think it said 2 alpha. 2 alpha. Then we've got the function, which is lacking anonymous. Takes the value. Or does it just know to do it to all the values? It actually just knows to cast the values. That's pretty clever. Return this map function, right? So what we need when we call this function to run, we're going to have range, capital A, capital Z, which will be our alphabet. Okay, and then what we will be doing is we will be, this is really interesting. What's it doing? Return string upper value. So does this map, then he maps a function to it. Return string upper value. Huh. Because I do want to map, probably do the same. Return this map, right? And then we'll do a function. We'll have the value. We're going to colon over there, right? So we're going to map the function. We're going to return the return alphabet value. Yes, something like that, right? Did I alphabet? Yeah. No, interesting. Can I do dollar this, dollar this, move that alphabet? No. Huh. This is interesting. So should I just declare this outside of this method and then do something like, see if it wants to? No, still not. Construct. Wow, I did not know we can do that. That is quite crazy. You can actually do a construct with a closure. That is friggin' awesome. That is really, really awesome. So that's fine, we're just extending it to be able to do that. And we don't actually use the to alpha. So, and it, what does it return? It is collection to upper. So it's non-mutable, which is good to know. Which also means we should just be able to do this. Dollar numbers collection to alpha. That should actually work. So let's see if the test that wants to show me some love. Return value must be of array. Ah, okay. And then finally, so the macro is a function which starts this whole thing, which returns this map, and then that's just going to be to array. Because again, friggin' collection's amazing, method chaining. So right there, I'm going to chuck it over to an array. Shoo, get letters expected output. Fail to assert false is true. Hello, hello. Ah, so it'd be interesting, because remember, you're doing a range where it's probably going to, yeah, because you're not doing 1 to 26, your array starting at 0 to A. Yes, and then finally, I think what we will do is align input array to matching array, shift index 1 left. So we'll do number collection array map, and we'll do a function where we'll accept the value. Okay, just colon it over there, and we will be return value -1. Okay, and then this will be number collection shifted equals, and then that, my dear, should be our passing code. Wow, amazing.